There's a moment every man experiences, but almost none recognize. A moment when a woman says something just slightly off. A joke that stings a little. A request that feels a bit too demanding. A tone shift that doesn't match the situation. It's small. It's subtle. And you brush it off. Because you don't want conflict. You don't want to seem insecure. You don't want to make it a big deal. But here's the truth. That moment was a test. A boundary test. A psychological checkpoint women use to see what they can get away with. And what kind of man you really are beneath the surface. Most men fail these tests without ever knowing they took one. In today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how these tests work, why they happen, and how to pass them without aggression, games, or pretending to be someone you're not. Because once you understand these subtle boundary tests, everything about women and their behavior finally starts making sense. Before we talk about the tests themselves, you need to understand one thing clearly. Boundary tests are not random. They are not accidental, and they are not meaningless. Women test men intuitively, not because they're manipulative by nature, but because they're wired to seek emotional safety, stability, and consistency in the men they connect with. A boundary test is simply a moment where she pushes, just a little, to observe your reaction. Not aggressively, not with bad intentions, but from instinct. Here's how these tests usually manifest. A subtle shift in tone. A small disrespect masked as a joke. A request she expects you to decline. A sudden emotional storm. A moment of withdrawal to gauge your response. In her mind, these tests answer one question. Are you the man you said you were? Not the man you were on your best behavior? Not the man you were in the honeymoon phase? Not the man you were when everything felt easy and perfect? But the man you are when she pushes your edges, when things don't go her way, when she introduces a little pressure. A woman isn't looking for dominance. She's looking for consistency. If you collapse, overreact, or abandon yourself to keep her happy, she notices. She might not say anything, but the respect shifts. The dynamic changes, and the relationship starts to tilt. Understanding these tests is not about controlling women. It's about controlling yourself. The first test is almost always tiny. So tiny you could miss it. And that's the danger. It might look like this. A sarcastic joke at your expense. A comment like, "Relax, you're too serious." An eye roll when you share something meaningful. A "you're being dramatic" when you set a boundary. A playful insult that feels slightly off. She's not trying to hurt you. She's trying to see you, to see how grounded you are. Tension reveals truth. And this is where most men fail. They laugh it off, even though it bothered them. They pretend it was fine. They apologize for reacting. They explain themselves excessively. They hide their discomfort to avoid conflict. But here's the psychological rule. Whatever you tolerate, you teach. So when you ignore those small cuts, you send a message. A message that you're willing to shrink yourself just to keep the peace. And that kills attraction over time. Not instantly, but slowly, quietly, like erosion. What should you do instead? Not yell, not attack, not lecture. Just call it out, calmly, directly, with steady tone and grounded confidence. Something like, "Hey, I don't like that. That doesn't work for me. Let's keep the respect." Simple, clear, unemotional. Because the moment you express yourself honestly, with no fear, she sees something rare. A man with self-respect. The second test is more subtle, and it's emotional. It happens when she tries to see how much emotional weight she can place on your shoulders. Not because she wants to drain you, but because she wants to feel safe. She wants to know if you're a man who can stay calm without collapsing under pressure. This test looks like blaming you for emotions she hasn't explained, expecting you to fix her mood, being upset and expecting you to read her mind, getting distant to see how you respond, making you responsible for how she feels. And here's where men get trapped. They start taking ownership of emotions that don't belong to them. They absorb her tension. They walk on eggshells. They chase. They over-communicate. They try to make everything okay. But emotional leadership doesn't mean being her emotional sponge. It means being her emotional anchor. Your job is not to regulate her emotions. Your job is to regulate your own. The goal is to remain steady even when she's not. To remain calm even when she's spiraling. To respond without reacting. A grounded man can say, "Hey, I'm here, but I'm not responsible for emotions you haven't communicated." Or, "I care about you, but I don't take responsibility for feelings you haven't expressed." This type of calm clarity does two things. It reassures emotionally healthy women. It exposes emotionally manipulative women. Either way, you win because you keep your center. This is the test that reveals everything. The moment she asks for something she knows crosses your line. Not because she needs it, but because she wants to see if you'll stay true to yourself. She may ask for more time than you can realistically give, access to your privacy, financial support you're not ready for, sacrifices that make you uncomfortable, changes in your values or priorities, exceptions to your non-negotiables. She's not expecting a yes, she's expecting honesty. But most men, especially those afraid to disappoint women, collapse here. They avoid saying no because they fear losing her, or upsetting her, or appearing too firm. But a woman's respect doesn't come from how much you give. It comes from how well you protect what matters to you. Your no is more attractive than your yes. Your boundary is more attractive than your flexibility. Your self-respect is more attractive than your compliance. A manipulative woman will guilt-trip you. A healthy woman will respect you. But either way, you must hold your ground. Saying no gently, calmly, and consistently shows one thing. Your values can't be negotiated, and that's what sets you apart. Here's the secret most men never learn. You don't pass these tests by becoming tougher or colder or emotionally shut down. You pass them by becoming centered. When you are centered, you speak clearly without raising your voice. You set boundaries without fear. You say no without guilt. You stay calm during emotional storms. You don't take disrespect personally. You don't shrink yourself to be liked. You stay consistent even when she changes. This is masculine confidence in its purest form. Remember, a woman tests to see if your identity collapses under pressure, whether you're a man who stands firm or a man who bends to avoid discomfort. The right woman will relax into your strength. She will feel safer with you, more feminine, more open, more respectful. The wrong woman will resist it. She will push harder, escalate, or withdraw. But either way, you are no longer controlled by reactions, validation, or fear. You control your own reality. And that's what makes you unstoppable.